Hello and welcome to Feeding Under Fire. My name's Simon Walker, I'm from the University of Strathclyde, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make trench pie. So, to make your trench pie we're going to need two separate sets of ingredients. First of all, you're going to have to make your pastry, or as referred to in the 1914 Army cookbook, paste. You're going to need some flour, and you're going to need some butter, and you're going to need a little bit of water. For your second set of ingredients, to fill the pie, we're going to need some onions, some stock, some salt, some pepper, and for your meat, you can have some delicious corned beef. To make the pastry, what we're going to do is we're going to mix together the flour and the butter. Now you can use a little bit of water as well, just to make sure that you have a workable dough so you can roll it out. Now you'll see that I'm using butter, but the original recipe actually calls for dripping. Now I'm using butter because it's more likely that you'll have some available, and also it's a tiny bit healthier. As I mix together the pastry and roll it out, this gives me an opportunity to talk to you a little bit more about the history of cookery in the British Army. Now, until the Second World War, every regiment, battalion or unit was responsible for providing its own cook. The British Army Cook School wasn't founded until 1885. But even then, there was no central control, there was no oversight. And the Cook School, which was founded to improve the level of cooking in the British Army, was closed again before the First World War broke out in 1914. Historically, and during the First World War, the quality of cooking was left to men who showed the most amount of interest, or were simply at the back of the line and caught their commanding officer's eye, and then were arbitrarily awarded the role of cook. And the results of this, combined with issues with supplies, could result in a very unpleasant dining experience for soldiers. One such soldier was Private S. Roberts, who wrote in his diary as he served during the First World War about the food. He wrote, "Rations have been very poor. The bread mouldy and scarce, tea, soup and coffee cannot be distinguished from each other, excepting by time of day. The cooks have never cooked before, and it almost appears as though they will never cook again. Their sole efforts seem to be concentrated in spoiling whatever rations come within their sphere of operations. Some of the troops are able to purchase food at nearby restaurants, but others are too poor to do so, and have to either live on the swill that is thrown to them, or starve." Now, Private Roberts' tale isn't the same experience for every single soldier in the First World War, but many soldiers experienced at least one meal or several meals that didn't meet their expectations. Food was such an important part of a soldier's experience that you can find it again and again being mentioned in diaries, letters home, oral testimonies taken after the war, and memoirs. Food is a constant glimpse into their experiences as they served at the front line or behind the trenches. Once you finish your pastry, you should have a little bit of pastry left over to go around the edge of your pie dish. Now in the original recipe, it was very clear to say you're supposed to be putting the pastry around the edge but not in the middle, so you should leave a space there, and you should have a nice pie crust that's going to go on the top. So what we're going to add in first is a little bit of stock. You're only going to add in about a centimetre's worth of stock. If your beef stock, just in there, and then set that to one side. Because what we need to add now is the meat. Now, the meat is corned beef. Now, corned beef was called bully beef in the First World War because there was a British mispronunciation of the way that the French refer to boiled, and corned beef, which is in a very difficult can to open, corned beef as you can see, is a salted preserved meat which is served in a can, has a very distinctive flavour. Now it would be carried within the iron rations of every soldier. It would be next to their hard tack in their bag, and it was a meal that you could have on the go. But it would also be a meal that would be served in the kitchens. It was very easy to transport on trucks and so on and so forth in tins, and it kept for a long time. So with your own corned beef, what you want to do is you want to cut it into cubes. So you want to slice it. And you get that lovely texture there. And cut it like so. And add that straight into your pie. Now if you feel that your pie hasn't got enough meat in it, you can add another tin of corned beef in. But I think we're going to be okay. Next, move that out of the way. You want to add in your onions. So you should have chopped onions, nicely chopped, nice and fine. Put them on top. Like so. And then we want to be adding a bit of salt and pepper. Bit of salt. Tiny bit of pepper flavour. And then importantly, you're going to take your stock. So you put your stock and you pour your stock all over your mixture, but you don't want to take it above your meat. So you want to take it so you can still see everything. Like so. Stop there. Okay, so you finished pie. So you've got your onions, you've got your meat, you've got your stock, you've got your pastry, and the next thing you want to do is put your crust on. Just take your crust, lay it on top, and mix it with your edges before. And that should give you your pie. And the last thing you want to do is take your knife and make a nice hole directly in the centre of your pastry. Just like that. And we do this because in the original instructions in the 1914 Army Cookbook it says that you have to make a hole to let the unwholesome gases from the meat out from the pie. Not sure if that's just to do with the corned beef but this is your pie and you get ready to put it in the oven. Now you've taken your pie out of the oven, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. You probably want to cook it for somewhere between 25 minutes to 35 minutes, but the most important thing is to make sure that you're going for a nice crisp crust. You don't want it too burnt, but you want a nice brown colour and a little bit of moisture still around on the inside. Obviously make sure that you're using oven gloves, just once had a chance to cool. Okay, so very lucky today to have a special guest with me. This is Rachel Hewitt from Glasgow, Caledonian University.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you very much for coming down. And she has volunteered to try the lovely trench pie that I've been cooking. So, Rachel, what you're going to be eating is corned beef hash, stock, onions, made with essentially a short crust pastry. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to cook you some of this.
It smells amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And
oh wow. It looks so good.
Never realised how difficult it was to actually cut a pie on camera. Got to be honest. This is not going so well. But can I borrow your plate?
You can indeed.
Okay, there we go. A little bit of that. And always have a spoon and a spatula, I think is the lesson that you need. There you go. A bit of that as well. So,
thank you very much.
No problem. And since you have to go through it, I suppose I should try it as well. I'm sure it's delicious, of course. Well, I made it, so it'll be absolutely absolutely splendid. So, okay. Do you want to give it a try?
Of course. Let me try the pastry. It's actually pretty good. It's actually really nice.
Not bad.
I haven't had corned beef since I was in school. It's just so nice. Would you serve it like this then? Would it just come like as it is, or would it have like potatoes or things like that with it?
So yeah, that's a really good question. It would usually be served. It could be served in the D tin, which is the ration tin right here. But more often than not, it would be served on a plate, and it would be cooked not necessarily at the very front line, but it'd be served. It would be cooked in field kitchens, which would be behind the line, and you would either have the meal brought to you in vast kind of tins, and you would eat it in the front line, or you would eat it in mess halls behind the line. Because this does away with the idea that men would spend their entirety of the service of the war right at the very front, where they would actually be frequently brought off the line and then put back onto the line and so forth. So this kind of meal would usually be made en masse and fed behind the line.
But it's called trench pie.
Yeah, it is called trench pie. It's called trench pie because that's one of the names that I found for it. Another name for it within the recipe book that I've used today, it's actually called meat pie. But it's I've seen it elsewhere called trench pie, and I think that's because it seems to cover a multitude of sins. Because right now you're eating corned beef, but what you could have had was beef, rabbit, veal, essentially any kind of meat that you could have put into a pie. There's an interesting story from a soldier called Walter Clark, and Walter, in his oral testimony at the Imperial War Museum, talked about how he was unloading meat in 1917 as he worked for the stores, and the meat was, he describes, being white, yellow, brown. And he was told it was rabbit, and he firmly believes that it wasn't rabbit, it was cat. So I'm absolutely not saying that you're eating cat, but there's a possibility that there was questions of what was in it, and a pie like this covered a multitude of sins.
And this is definitely corned beef.
This is definitely corned beef. I mean, does that make you more likely to want to eat it?
Yeah, I think it does.
Really?
Not being cat does, yeah.
Well, because the interesting thing about corned beef is that every single soldier would carry a tin of corned beef, the bully beef, with them. And Walter himself talks about being on a march up to Vimy Ridge in 1917, and had the march for 25 miles without any food. And the commanding officer said, fine, you can stop, you can have your iron rations, and they ate their iron rations. And as Walter pulls his tin, very hungrily pulls his tin of corned beef out, and he opens it, out spills tons of maggots.
Oh!
So there's no maggots in this pie, but unfortunately sometimes the tinned process wouldn't always protect the meat completely, and there could be maggots inside of their tins.
But I thought bully beef was meant to last about like 100 years.
Oh, it absolutely should. Well, not 100 years. This is not 100-year-old bully beef, but it should keep for a while. But if there's any kind of impurities or so forth, if the meat wasn't good before it was condensed and put into the tin, you could have maggots in it. But there are no maggots in this.
And thank you for feeding me corned beef instead of cat, and thank you for not having any maggots in it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Your lovely buttery pastry.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me for this episode of Feeding Under Fire. Hope you've enjoyed making your very own trench pie, and look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks very much.